So it's now time to start thinking about mounting the hull onto a temporary baseboard, just for ease of handling. So as you remember, I've already marked where I think I'm going to put them. So for the mounting, I'm going to use M5 nuts and bolts. So using a piece of 2mm plastic card, I've sunk the 5mm nut into that in on the underside. I've made it flush, and then on the top I've just put epoxy around. I've got both of them here. So the thinking being, the plate will spread the load over a wider area of the hull, and being sunk into the plastic card and secured with the epoxy, that will prevent the nut spinning. So it'll look like something like that. So M5, I'll need to drill a 5mm hole. So what I'll do is I'll come in and make a pilot hole first. And then I'll just go up to a 3mm drill, which is the biggest I can do in the pin vise. So I need to do the 5mm now, and I'll have to use a power drill for that because I've no way of holding a 5mm. I might be able to do it by hand. I'm a bit wary of using the power drill purely because of the control I'll have. Okay, the drill is too big to get under the camera, so I'll do this and I'll come back. Okay, so that's the holes done, and hopefully it just fits through perfectly. So what I'll do is temporarily fix these down. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just draw this line here. And then I'll use the contactor glue just to get a good solid bond. I'll just come in with some extra thin as well from belts and braces, and we'll just do the same for the back one. Okay, so that's them done. So we'll just let that go off, and then we'll have a look at the baseboard itself. So the baseboard itself is just a temporary baseboard, so I can securely mount the hull and work on it without worrying about damaging and manhandling it. So it's nothing fancy, 12mm MDF with a couple of wood strips glued to the underside of it, both sides, just to keep it off the ground. The pedestals, this was 18mm wood dowel, again, just temporary, nothing fancy. But what I'll need to do is find the centres to drill the 5mm hole in the centre. So what I've done is I've made a centre finder, just a couple of bits of 2mm in a right angle, thin part at 45. So we can just hold the dowel into it. Try and get my hands the right way around. Into the touching both sides. Put a pencil mark in, spin it round, 45 roughly, it doesn't have to be this size, as a pencil mark, and all going to plan. This should be the centre of the dowel, so I'll be able to drill down through there now. Okay, so that's the holes drilled through the dowels, put them down. So now we need to make the holes in the base plate. So we'll just take a hole, line it up. It's actually a bit shorter than I wanted, so we've got a bit of an overhang on both sides, but it's okay. So I'll just come in and make a pilot hole for the, doesn't have to be all the way through, just to get the drill started. And of course I have to come in with the big drill, just put a block of wood underneath so I don't drill into my mat. Okay, let's get this mounted. This one as well. I'm just spinning the bolt from below. Just swap sides. Tighten it. I'm not going a great deal of force because you know, we don't want to buckle or break anything. So that's the hull mounted now. So as you can see, it's a bit of an overhang front and rear, and here we go, it's on its pedestals. Again, this is all temporary, so I'm not being too fussy or whatever, but that's pretty well secured. Okay, what I want to do next is prime and paint the lower hull. The reason for that is it will allow me to fit the hull onto the baseboard, and then I can work on doing all of the photo etch and that without worrying about knocking it off by manhandling the hull itself. So because it's such a big area to paint and it's going to take time, we want to take some steps to reduce the likelihood of dust getting on the model. So the first thing is I've cleared the desk, the mat, all the other bits and pieces that live on the desk, just because they're going to be covered in dust based on previous activities. And also don't forget to do any lights as well, because the last thing you want is dust falling off the lights onto the model. I'll just do the whole desk area. So with the table dry, the next step is to degrease the model because it's had lots of handling. I can actually see some dust on it just we sit in the hobby room. So for that we'll use IPA and we'll give the whole model a good wipe down. Or not necessarily the whole model, just the areas we're going to paint. So this is just to remove finger grease and any contaminants that might affect the paintwork. Okay, so that's the hull degreased, cleaned up with the IPA. Now the last step I'm going to do, and I haven't done this before, is to use a tack cloth. Now this is something that paint shops do for car body work. But essentially what it is it's a cloth that's got some tacky, it's actually quite sticky, it's leaving residue in my fingers. But you actually rub it over whatever you're going to paint. And any dust or whatever will stick to the cloth. It's quite amazing, I have to wash my hands, but it's leaving tackiness on my hands. But when you wipe it on the model, it's not tacky at all. So it's not being transferred, or the stickiness isn't being transferred to the model. I'll put the screws in so I don't have to touch the surface of the model. Now the beauty about this is, it goes back into the bag it came from, and that will just protect it. So that should last. And now finally on to the primer. I'm going with the 1500 grey because the pink wasn't giving me much success, so we'll see how this goes. Okay, so I've loaded up the airbrush. I've actually used the cap this time because I've got a fair amount in there. We'll just get cracking. Put them below, just make sure. All the edges and things first. The grey spray is similar to the black, it's very nice. The only trouble with the grey is it's hard to see grey on grey. Okay, So that's the primer done on the lower half. On the whole, it's not too bad. And despite my best efforts, there's still some little bits and pieces needing touched up. Also, I don't know if you can see, there's a real rough patch right at the front, and the same at the back, a couple of sections. So I'll need to touch them up and address that before I go into the top coat. But on the whole, it's not too bad. Okay, so I gave it a wet sand with 2000 grit paper, and it kind of smoothed out, so it's very smooth. It still looks rough, but it is smooth. And then give it a wipe with the IPA and the Takara again. So the hull colour I'm going to use is Tamiya's Lacquer LP18, which is dull red. I've seen that used in some other builds, and I like the colour. So again, we'll just start in some less conspicuous areas. Okay, I think it's spraying and looking not too bad, so I'll just plough ahead and we'll come back and have a look. So that's the lower hull painted. I'm going to leave it at that. It's turned out not too bad. So I do have one confession to make. I actually ended up just blasting it with TS33 dull red. It was getting a bit monotonous and I was losing patience doing it with the airbrush because it's only a 0.3 needle. And like I say, I'm happy enough I would stand out. So we'll get this mounted on the stand, and then moving forward I'll be able to do all the photo etch work on the side, get the decks in. Okay. We'll move on to the 6-inch guns next on the lower gun deck. So you've got the gun and a pin, and Pontos supply turned brass barrels to replace the plastic one. We drill a 1mm hole for that. So the guns are on sprue K, and there's 4 sprues and there's 4 guns in each sprue. We only need 14, but it gives you a total of 16. The pins as well. So just looking at the barrels themselves, these are very nice actually. Very little mould seam on the barrel itself. Some of them's got heavy seams here, which we'll clean up anyway. But hopefully you can see, these must be slide moulded I think, because they've got a nice opening in the barrel as well. But we'll be replacing them with the Pontos barrels. They're really nice as well. So that's all the guns and pins and barrels and that all ready to go. The first thing we want to do is check the fit of this pin into the gun. Now it's very tight, so if I force that through it's going to be locked solid. Remember, we've only got this small section here. It glues into the lower gun deck, so with that glued in there's no way that will turn. So what I might do is just try opening this hole a wee bit. This is a 2mm drill. Just still a bit tight. So the next thing we'll try there in is removing some material from the shank of this pin. Don't want to go crazy because still want it to be a nice fit. So just work our way, just take our time. And that's nice. Okay. So with all the pins fitted, it's now time to clean up the guns. So the first thing is we'll take this sprue gate off the back here, and then we'll remove the barrel. Okay, so if you look in the back, even though this will never be seen, there is some mould lines there, but we'll just clean them up anyway. Now these ones on the side, I mean, I don't know if you can see, but it's quite a step there. So what I'll do is, I think I'll scrape. I'll scrape it off initially, and then I can come in and sand the last part. Then we'll do this curve. We want to try and maintain the curve. We'll finish off that with a sander. And then on the, where we remove the barrel, we want to try and keep that flat as possible as well. Use something a bit more aggressive first. This is 180. And then we'll just do the same for the other side. The moulding line on this side isn't nearly as heavy or thick as the side which is dead, so okay. So just to finish that off, we'll give it a buff. So now we just need to put the barrels on now. Hopefully you can see the plastic barrel continued all the way through on the curve, went past the guard here, and once we've removed that, we've still got the curve at the top of the barrel. So what we want to do is line up the top curve of the brass barrel, so when we drill the hole and put it in, the curve again continues through. Okay, so if I've got my calculations right, the distance up from the bottom is 2.15. so what we can do is come in here, hold that flush with the bottom, and then make our mark. Okay, so we'll just come in with a airbrush needle and just make it a bit strong, a bit more visible here. So hopefully that looks about right. Okay, so we've got the 1 mil drill bit, and we need to come in. Hopefully I'm square on here. Hopefully you can see the barrel curve continues through to the plastic curve. So we'll get some glue into this now. So I'll just use a relatively cheap, thicker glue. Just apply it with a toothpick. I'm going to make sure it goes into the hole. And there's a wee bit on the outside, which is good. We'll take our barrel. And that's it. So looks relatively straight and level. Because we took a bit of time to make that surface flat, it should go in and stay pretty flat. So that's it. And then of course the pin. Okay, we'll do the 6-inch guns now. This is take 2. As you can see, I already started doing it. I didn't realise it wasn't filming. So as you can see, I've numbered the guns 1 to 14. That's because I want to make sure the pins go back into the same guns. So you can see I've already primed one gun, and I've also primed so the pins. Not too worried about the shanks, but we'll do the caps. For the sake of the video, we'll do another one. Okay, so I'll finish the rest of them now. Okay, with the 6-inch guns primed, we'll apply the top coat. So I'm using LP14 Maizuru Arsenal, the same as the hull. This Tamiya lacquer sprays beautifully. No issues with it. So I'll just work away and do the rest of them. Okay, so that's the first 10 6-inch guns for the lower deck done. It came out really well. I really like that Tamiya lacquer paints. Goes on very nicely. And I did the tops of the pins as well. Although I'd imagine virtually nothing will be seen as a lower gun deck, I'm actually going to prime and paint it, just the off chance that you can't see through. And also, it's a good time to do some practice on using Mr. Finishing Surfacer in the 1500 pink, because I don't seem to be getting the same flawless results as with the black 1500. Seems to be going on a bit funny, so it'll be a good chance to give it a try without worrying about what will be seen. There is quite a number of sink marks. I've roughly filled them in. They're not perfect, but they're good enough for this, because like I say, the gun ports are so small, you'll see nothing in here. Okay, that'll do. Really not happy with the behaviour of the pink Mr. Surfacer 1500. Okay, we'll paint the back wall now the same hull grey that we've been using for the rest of the ship. We'll leave it at that. Okay, so we'll now paint the base. I'm going to use linoleum colour for that. So I'm going to do one side in the acrylic XF79 and the other side in LP17, which is the lacquer, just to get a kind of feel for what one I like the best, because I don't know if you can see, the lacquer is quite brown and the acrylic's a bit more red. So based on what I see here, we'll decide what one I'll use for the visible decks. Before we go any further, I'll just tape up the grey section we've already just done. Is that the best even coverage? I seem to have some kind of reaction along this edge here on both sides with lacquer and acrylic, or Tamiya acrylic I should say. So as expected, one side's more brown and the other side's more red. At the moment I'm not sure what way I'm heading, brown or red. But that's okay, we've still got plenty of time to decide. At least now I've got something to reference. With the hull mounted on the baseboard, which I've gave a quick and dirty coat of varnish, we can now install the lower gun deck. So back at the beginning of the build, according to the instructions, they would have you install the gun deck at the same time as putting the halves together. But if we did that, then we wouldn't have been able to put in the mounting plates and nuts. So we could put it in like this, and we could pull the hull apart this much to drop it in, because it actually sits on these and it gets glued to these. But because it's well positioned, I don't want to force the hull. So what I'll do is I'll just cut this in half and we'll put it in two pieces. Okay. So to cut in half, we'll just cut it the same way we do with any piece of styrene. Just make a good few scores through the plastic. There we go. Let me just trim this. It didn't snap nearly as easy as you'd expect with styrene. So it's got a bit of a ridge here, so we'll just clean that up. This one's okay. I'll just use an aggressive sander to get rid of this. Okay, so let's fit them. Again, making sure we've got the arrow to the bow. That goes under. Okay. again I'll use the contactor. Okay, so we'll just do the other side. Okay, so that's the gun deck on. Now we can't put the main decks on until we fit these, and we've still got the bow in stern 3-inch guns to make. So that'll be for the next video. Okay, so we'll call it there for this video.